Yes, so whilst we're at it, the guest that we have tonight, a drum roll please. He is a person that I know personally, a friend, a brother, more like a mentor as well. A very passionate individual, but Steve Sherman, that is his name. Steve is the Chief Imagination Officer of a STEM-based organization called Living Math. It is an NGO. He teaches a few thousands of students weekly. So this is thousands of students that he interacts with on a weekly basis from around the world. He feels that it is his destiny to spread the joy of mathematics, science, space, engineering, ed tech, numbers, problem solving, and critical thinking. And these are the 21st century, obviously, skills to anyone who's willing to listen, but also those that are not willing to listen. He is a 2020 recipient of the Global Teacher Award, 2 times TEDx speaker, a multi-certified educator, Kahoot ambassador, and verified educator, Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert, executive member of the Global Education Network, Space Foundation International Teacher Liaison, the outreach officer of the annual Humans and Mars Summit, coordinator of the world's largest math Olympiads, chief organizer of an annual Living Math Space Tour. You can already start to see the kind and caliber of person that we're speaking today, with today. And whilst we're at it, please help me welcome Steve Sherman onto the platform. Steve.
Thank you for that very lovely introduction. I should write longer ones. They sound fantastic. Were you talking about me?
So very critical as that phone is being taken care of. Very critical. I mean, Steve, I felt like you were testing how I can tongue twist there, and yeah, it's a mouthful, but you've done a lot, hey?
You know, I have this theory that we only live once. So what is the point of doing nothing? Find all the things that you're passionate about, do as many things as you can, and just enjoy what you do.
Yeah, but where do you get the time? Because many people, especially in this day and age where we have started to understand the value of time, we follow those that are in the business world saying time is money, and we listen to those that say time is the essence of life. So we don't want to waste any, right? And most of the time we actually use it on things that don't matter. Where do you find the time?
So here's an interesting way of answering that question with a question. In mathematics, we often ask kids to solve certain problems, and the problem is that they solve it using a pair of glasses that allows them only to see in 2 dimensions. But if they had to view the problem in 3 dimensions, all of a sudden, they see it from a different perspective. So to answer your question, a lot of people think of 9 to 5. How do you fit it all in? But wait a second, the rest of the world is not working on our 9 to 5. Their 9 to 5 is actually our 6 to 12. So basically, if I want to do a lot of international work, I've got to work later into the evenings, and it's just about time management. That's all.
Yeah, excellent. And I'm happy that you start at that high note with inspiring young people. Obviously, we are a channel that is made mainly of young people. And what we're trying to do is really to inspire them, to catapult them to their optimal potential. And I guess some of the things that you already started to speak to with regards to time management, but also viewing the world with, multiple lenses and seeing the other perspective. What are the challenges? Yes, but also what are the opportunities? I think that is a beautiful, beautiful place to start that discussion. But maybe, Steve, let's just go back. This is a mouthful, bio, as we said. But if you were to put it in simple words, who is Steve? What are you all about? If you're to just meet someone and have a decent conversation with them and they ask you, who are you? What would you tell them?
That is a difficult one to answer. I am so many things to so many people. But the thing that I would want to get across the most is that I am a passionate educator. I'm not about teaching. I'm about helping people to learn. A lot of people want to be the teachers that can teach. I want to be the teacher that can reach. And I'm not focused only on one particular discipline. When it comes to STEAM, you can have the arts, you can have the maths, the science, technology, engineering, ed tech space. All those realms are things that I'm keen on or interested in, and I want to share my passion with you. You don't have to listen if you don't want to, but I can tell you, if I share the interesting bits, you're going to want to listen.
Yeah. And all those things, I mean, these are some of the things that I want to discuss about later, but I'm tempted to put it to you right now, because we, especially in South Africa, we're at such a time where we are struggling with passion, right? We don't have a culture of doing things just because we love what we do. Volunteering, what's your take on that as a teacher, doing things for free? Because I know you, and you do a whole lot of things because you know it's right, and because you know it makes a difference.
So I have this philosophy that you must always make time to do things for free.
Yeah.
And generally it's for good causes, because if you give, you will receive not financial, but you will receive the benefits of the joy of giving, which is a wonderful feeling in itself. But I think you also need to value your time. So a lot of people will start out giving of their time for free. And that is valuable because you build skills, you make connections, you learn a lot. But then once you've got the skills and once you are connected, then your time becomes valuable, and you need to put some boundaries on it and start charging for your time. So I will always generously give of my time. And if you speak to any of the charities that I'm close to, they will tell you I've always made time for them. But when it comes to corporates, they come along and say, oh, would you want to run a 3-hour workshop for our staff for free? We can give you exposure. Well, you know what? I can get exposure myself. Just pay me money and I'm glad to do it. So I think that you need to acquire skills, and that is sometimes gathered through volunteering. So I learned a fortune from a lot of the stuff that I didn't charge for. I just wanted to open my what do they call it? My vista. I wanted to learn new skills, and it's always free when you learn on the job, when you are volunteering. So for example, if someone said to me, how did you learn about Lego robotics? Well, you know what I did? I volunteered to coach and to mentor teams, and then to go on and become a judge. And you know what? I learned a fortune from being in that environment, from connecting with like-minded people, and then I got interested in it myself. So sometimes you do have to give in order to receive. But remember, when you do give, you are gaining incredible skills, and those skills are going to become valuable in the future. So when you say that in South Africa we don't have a culture of volunteerism, you snooze, you lose. You don't want to volunteer, that's absolutely fine with me. It means more work for me. So you just carry on sitting down, being lazy. I'm going to get the opportunities because I'm taking initiative, and you're sitting on your laurels waiting for work to come to you. That's not how it works. You've got to go to the work.
Listen, first of all, you're speaking to South Africa right now, and I hope that someone is listening out there, and most importantly, that they're taking notes. I always say, when you come to this platform, one thing that you should be sure to bring is a notebook so that you take down the notes. But Steve, also, I'm happy that I'm also not corporate, right? Because, for those of you that are here, Steve has made time for you. And his sole wish is that you might be inspired and that you might go out there and do great. But I think you bring out a very important point. And this is to say that we all start somewhere. And for all the things that we do not know, there is an opportunity for us to go out there and volunteer and gain those skills. And once you have those skills, there are people that are going to come and offer to pay you for those skills. And many young people have not understood this as yet, to say, even after university, you might be educated, have a master's degree, etc. But still, you need to put in time into volunteering. And ultimately, the time that you put in, you reap back. You speak about the principle of giving and receiving. You get back at some point in time. I love that. I love that. Chief Imagination Officer. We're used to chief executive officers. Explain this, please.
So I have this belief that titles mean absolutely nothing. If you're going to tell me that you're the chief imagination officer, the chief executive officer, the chief accounting officer, the chief whatever you want, it means nothing to me. I deal with people, not with titles. So I figured, since titles are not that important to me, I'm going to give myself a creative one, because it really does reflect what I do. I use my imagination all the time. So on my card, it would say Chief Imagination Officer and Executive Daydreamer. And where did I get the title from? My grade 1 report. I actually still have the report, and it says there from my grade 1 teacher that Steve has a vivid imagination. He sits and he daydreams in class all day long. Clearly, I was quite bored in class. And I thought, well, there we go. She picked me out. She knew that I was going to be the chief imagination officer and executive daydreamer. And I'm living out her dream. Well, it's my dream, but I'm living out her expectations.
But you also mentioned something that is very critical, and this is the role of educators. Can they see? Can they inspire? Can they identify what our potential is and direct us towards that? Can they nurture? Can they improve? Can they develop? And I guess we will get to some of those aspects. And whilst we're actually still on that point, I've called you, and you were busy at that point in time, and voice message responded to me. I don't quite remember the words, but if you don't get to me, I'm probably somewhere out there saving the world, something like that. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Well, you know what? I've realized that I don't have a lot of time to listen to lengthy voice messages. I just thought I'm going to put something out there to say, by the way, I'm busy solving the world's crises, and I'm busy solving complex equations. So if you want to send me a message, just send me via WhatsApp or an email, and I'll be able to get back to you. But to go and listen to 25-minute messages, I just don't have the time of the day, because remember, time management's important. So a quick SMS, WhatsApp, or email is much easier to respond to than a voice message.
Very true. And it's creativity. I just thought it was creative. I was chuckling as if I was listening to someone. And that's how, the impact that you have with people, even when you're absent. And I love that. Delight Serirani, watching from Pretoria. Thank you very much for joining us. If you are joining us just now, you are in a segment with us. And today we have a special guest, Steve Sherman. He is the Chief Imagination Officer of an NPO that is called Living Math. But along with that, has many other titles that you can't exhaust. So thank you for joining us, and please share the stream. We know that we might have changed times, and that people might be expecting us to come live at 8. So please share the stream. Steve, I know that you are a numbers guy, and you can do amazing stuff with numbers. And many people hate numbers. When did you find out that, number one, you are good with numbers, number two, that you're in love to, play around with numbers and find a way to get people to understand numbers?
So, this is the one thing that I've learned in the years that I've been running Living Maths, and that is that when you talk to people about mathematics, I haven't met a single person that can't do mathematics. But I've met many thousands who tell me that they can't do mathematics. So now, if you believe that you can't do mathematics, then you are the hardest person to convince. So effectively, I think that it's important that students have a positive experience when it comes to mathematics. And the people who tell me that they don't like mathematics generally either had an awful experience at school, or they got into what we call the perpetual cycle of they did badly, so now they expect to continuously do badly. And when they do badly, they go, you see, I told you I was going to do badly. And they've actually switched off from mathematics. So, I think that any subject that is taught needs to have a context. You need to understand why you are learning it. So I'll give you a practical example. When I'm teaching something like, for example, gradients, when a student is in grade 8 or 9 and they're learning about gradients, they don't know what the word gradient means. So why introduce them to a fancy term that they don't understand and they can't relate to it? Why do I need to know a gradient? But if I said to them that we're having a guest speaker at school, and that guest speaker is going to be speaking on our stage, the problem is that they have an electric wheelchair which weighs about 150 kilograms. How are we going to get them onto the stage?
Yeah.
Now the kids start thinking, oh, we could build a ramp. There we go. Very easy. So then they go and design the ramp. They measure out the stage. They draw it to scale. And they notice that the ramp is sitting at about 50 or 60 degrees. Clearly, there's no ways anyone in a wheelchair is going to get up that ramp. So now we've got to try and find a way to make the ramp less steep. So you could chop the stage down and lower the ramp. Well, that's obvious, but not practical.
Yeah.
Or you could extend the length of the ramp. And if the ramp is longer, then obviously it's going to be a little bit more shallow. So what they start to discover is that there are two important factors in the angle of a ramp. It's the height and it's the length.
Yeah.
So if I have a height of 1 and a length of 6, it's going to be shallow.
Yeah.
If I have a height of 6 and a length of 1, it's going to be very steep.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden, when you introduce gradients, if the gradient is 5/1, they know it's a height of 1 over a length of 1, very steep. Before they even look at the graph, they have a concept of how that steepness is, and they'll also start thinking about the stage and the wheelchair because there was a context. So anything that you learn, and I tell teachers all the time, when you're introducing something, start with a question, because they need to know why they are learning it, not because they have to, but because there's an actual purpose for it.
And I guess because I too, when I was in high school, I used to say, but what is the practical kind of use of maths? Where am I going to use it? Of course, I knew that I needed to calculate money at some point in time and, etc. But you don't see what the practical implications are. And I have come to a place where I believe that when it comes to education, actually in general, it's not so much of what you say or the knowledge that you have, but more importantly, how you say it. Are you being understood? Are you reaching out? Are we speaking at the same level? Because you can speak over me, and that's a waste of time. Can you speak a little bit to that fact and the ability, how that can be acquired by anyone that is willing to be a mentor, a teacher, educator? How you can acquire such a skill? Does it come overnight? Do you practice it? Starting to ask questions. How do you do that?
I think the first thing you need to do is ask yourself, why am I here? What am I doing in this particular class? And why should I be here? And the teacher should be in a position to explain to you why by giving you a context. So if you are there in an engineering class, in a coding class, in a math class, in an English class, whatever class, if your teacher doesn't come in with the same passion that you deserve, then they're not going to pass that passion on to you. So I can understand why kids go into a class and come out bored going, nah, I can do this myself at home. What I find fascinating is that kids, if you give them something that interests them, they will go down a rabbit hole and just get so in depth into the nitty gritty of it because it's fascinating to them. So one of the ideas that I love, for example, there's a museum in the Netherlands. They wanted to get kids excited about art. But how do you get kids excited about art museums? It's one of the most boring outings for most people. So what they did was they activated a Bluetooth system. So when the kids came in, they got a text message from one of the subjects in a painting to say, listen, if you see my girlfriend in section A, she's got blonde hair, she's in one of the portraits, let me know. I suspect she's having an affair. Now you can imagine these teenagers are like, what? Oh, they go run off to the other section. They go looking around. Now they are analyzing every single photograph and they send a message back. Oh, we found her. She's in the whatever painting. He goes, then he responds, is she with a guy with brown hair? And yes, now they don't realize it's all automated. But at the end of
Yeah.
the day, when they are finished at that museum, they have helped save a marital crisis. But
Yeah.
what they don't realize is that they've actually gone and looked at every single painting. They've looked at the details. Certain things were mentioned in the messages, like they look like they're having tea at the lake, but let me tell you, I think a lot more is going on. What do you think? So now you've got to observe. Is
Yeah.
it more than just tea? What are the
Yeah.
clues? And then they might ask you, what do you think? Did you notice anything a little bit more than tea going on? So now they start
Yeah.
messaging. There was a blanket. We saw a blanket on the floor. So they are paying attention to the small details. So I tell teachers, if you can help illuminate the topic, give people a reason to go, I want to taste a little bit of that, then they will naturally get interested and want to learn more. So as educators, as mentors, it's about switching that light on
Mm.
onto the subject so that people can see it clearly and go, that looks interesting. Simple
Yeah.
as that.
When you're speaking, you remind me of many of the projects where we have met. So, Southwest Africa, what are we trying to do? Make science fun. ESCOM Expo for young scientists, what are we trying to do? The Science Center in Cape Town, what are we trying to do? But what we have realized is that actually, when it comes to learners, and this is just to confirm what you've been saying, it's that they're creative and they're imaginative, their curiosity. I mean, they ask a lot of questions themselves. And it's their curiosity that leads to multiple innovations. I mean, we've seen them create things that we've never thought that they could create. We've seen them come up with solutions for some of the problems that we're facing as a country, as a society, as communities. So it does tell us that for us to achieve the most out of them, we need a certain type of educator that is aware of some of those facts and also able. I mean, I think it's being graced with the ability to be able to draw out some of that innovative spirit out of them and draw out some of that passion out of them. And it takes a certain type of person, and we're going to keep on coming back to that person. We're going to keep on coming back to that person. But thank you so much for sharing that particular point, Steve. I'm just going to derail a little bit, but you'll see how it'll come together. You have many interests, and one of them, and we've seen you speak to people that have gone to space. So if you are here on the platform, and if you didn't know this, Steve has actually spoken to people that have left Earth and gone out of space and knows things that we don't know. But I'm interested, Steve. Why the interest in space? Do you know something that we don't? Is the Earth coming to an end?
Well, all you got to do is go to Grahamstown during load shedding. And when all of Grahamstown goes dark, the night sky is, excuse the pun, stellar. There you get to see constellations and some of the most beautiful images you will ever see. What I am going to try to do while we're chatting, I'm going to see if I can find it. While I was at SciFest, I managed to capture an image of the night sky.
Yeah.
And what did I capture in that image? Any ideas?
The moon?
I'll give you a clue. It starts with Milky and ends in way.
The Milky Way.
The Milky Way. So I'm going to share. Hopefully, it's going to work. Let's see if it goes to share screen. Let's go to this one over here. This is an image of the Milky Way taken with my cell phone. At night.
And we're waiting for it to come up.
Oh, it hasn't loaded up yet. It'll get there.
Yeah.
Let me know when you can see it.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Okay. So while it's loading up, as I was saying, you get this privilege of seeing the night sky and seeing gorgeous vistas, and you always ask that one question, and that is, are we alone?
Sorry, go ahead.
Are we alone?
Yeah.
Are we alone? So, I've always been fascinated with, what is out there. How do we get there, and what more could we learn? And it's always been an interesting aspect for me to connect with people who have been there. And I once went to a thing called SciFest. You might have heard of it. And I met an astronaut there, and we became very good friends. And subsequently after that, I started inviting him back to South Africa to launch a space tour where we went around taking people around to space. I don't know if the photograph did load.
Not as yet.
It didn't? Okay, don't worry. I will find a way to get it to you, and you can pop it in the chat so you can share that with the people that are there. But what is interesting is that, I realized that if you want to make something exciting, like space or science, what could be more exciting than bringing an astronaut out to South Africa to your school in the middle of a township, and then you get to ask them a question or meet them face to face. I see kids who meet their rugby heroes or their tennis heroes, and they want to be like their cricketer. They want to be like that hockey player. For them, it's the most amazing thing. And now, why can't we do that with STEM? So I bring out STEM role models quite regularly. In fact, in the next 3 months, next week, we've got Arthur Benjamin, the mathematician. We've got Janet Ivey from Explore Mars and Janet's Planet coming in March. And in May, we have an astronaut, Nicole Stott. She'll be coming out to South Africa, and we'll be picking different cities to visit where people will be able to go and attend a talk and get a photograph with the astronaut after the talk. I think it's so important to actually meet these mentors, because one day we want to know that we switched on at least 2 or 3 little kids who became Elon or Ilana Musks from South Africa and went into the STEM world and made a difference.
I think you're speaking to exposure, but also another important point is to say, how do we create visible role models within the sector? Because that's what is missing. I mean, we celebrate our idols in sports. Ronaldo is celebrated, Messi is celebrated, and we see it out there, and we don't see much of, our science giants being exhibited. But also, and this is part of what we are doing here, to say, Steve might be the great mathematician with all the skills that he can do and magic also under his, under his tricks. But he's also a human being. He's also a person, that can also, has also, experienced some of the challenges that, we might go through, but made it to where they are today. So it's a question
can I
of
talk about challenges? Because I think it's very important that it allows me to show that I am just as fallible and open to, difficult situations as everyone else. So when COVID came along, it was a very interesting time for me. Why? Because I became instantly unemployed. Now, why would I become instantly unemployed? Simply because at the end of the day, I couldn't go into classrooms. I couldn't go and run workshops. I couldn't teach. People couldn't come to me. I had to sit at home. And that means I had no source of income. So what do? Well, this is where problem solving comes in. You learn to pivot. You learn to be able to make things happen. Now, I'm not sure if I could still see you, but my browser seems to have frozen. So am I still coming across on the screen for you?
We can still hear you. We can still see you.
Okay, good. All right. So what I thought was interesting is that I then started looking at my skill sets. What am I good at? And one of the things I'm quite good at is working on the internet, looking at technology. So I thought, okay, why don't I just switch all my classes to online instead of in person? And well, that means I don't have to stop at Cape Town. I can offer it to the world. And I started offering free classes during lockdown because I knew everyone was going through a difficult time. And someone said to me, are you insane? Why are you giving your free time to these people? They could be paying. And I said, well, we learn from all these situations. So I tested out different software. I tried different things. I eventually settled on using Zoom because I felt that that was going to be the most appropriate product. I looked at time zones and things that would work. And after 8 weeks of free lessons, I also gave them a chance to taste what it is that I offer. And once I could do that, I was then able to offer an online service at a very reasonable cost. But I thought, well, why stop there? I looked around on the internet and I saw that Ireland were running Maths Week. And I thought, hey, I can do some activities for them. So I emailed them and I said, why don't we talk? I'll run 1 or 2 shows for you. And they said, what will it cost? I said, nothing. They said, well, that's our favorite price. We can afford that. So they said, why don't you run 1 or 2 events, which I did. And then the following year, they said, could you run 20? And I said, oh, I would love to run 20, but that means I have to, get my classes covered and it costs me money. They said, would you be okay if we paid you in euros?
Yeah.
So I said, twist my rubber arm. Fine, I'll do it. And the following year, they said, would you be willing if we paid you and brought you to Ireland to do it in person? And I said, if you're going to insist, I'm going to have to say yes. So I got to go to Ireland last year. And, just the connections that I made there, the people that I met, it was absolutely amazing. But what was really gratifying is that I brought a certain unique style of presenting, of my passion, my enthusiasm, which they hadn't seen before. And I'm hoping that this is going to become an annual thing. And that's because I took initiative. I was willing to climb out of my comfort zone. And let me tell you, no one ever grows until they climb out of their comfort zone. So if you're going to stick with what you're doing, you know what's going to happen? You're going to carry on doing what you're doing. But if you climb out of your comfort zone and try something that is a little bit like out of your reach that you would normally do, you know what's going to happen? You're probably going to learn. And you're probably going to try something new again after that. So I'm always happy to try new things. I'm always happy to take initiative and make contact with people and say, by the way, would you like me to do this? Would you like me to do that? And I'll do it for free the first time because I want you to get a taste of what I can offer. That's why you go and do internships at companies. When they've had a taste of your incredible abilities, they're going to say, no, stay. We want you to stay. We'll even pay you a salary. You become valuable to others in the service that you do.
I love it. I love it so much because, speaking to many points that I really, really want you to address today, Steve. Number one is to say, push out of your comfort zone. If you're listening to us, push out of your comfort zone. Stop sitting around and sleeping around. Push out of your comfort zone. So that is the message from Steve. But I love the fact that, you bring this notion to say, with great challenge comes great innovation, or the opportunity to innovate, the opportunity to learn. And you bring back that aspect of also going out there and also giving your time out for free, but in the process learning, in the process, whatever you do out of the, kindness of your heart in your free time, but do it to the best of your ability. And I think those are all things that we struggle with as young people. So I think the message is coming at the right time. I just wanted to actually say that, you spoke and said you didn't know what to do online. But when we started this show, that is during COVID-19, I went to Steve and I said, Steve, what platform should I use? And during that time, I was thinking of Zoom as well, right? And he said, what really do you want to do? And the fact that we use StreamYard today, it was something that came from Steve Sherman himself. So you see how that knowledge is passed on as well, and the continuous impact that it has.
What you said there is critical. I shared that knowledge not because I was expecting something in return. I shared the knowledge because I genuinely believe that you should share what you learn. What's the point of keeping it to yourself? So I often start creating different things. So, for example, I had a Facebook page called Flexing Friday, and every Friday afternoon, I would showcase a new app or new technology on the internet for teachers to use. And that started going ballistic until classes started happening on Fridays and I couldn't do it anymore. I might have to do it on Terrific Tuesdays or something like that. But the point is that, you know, I could keep it to myself and I could try and find a way to monetize that. But at the end of the day, that's not what gives me pleasure. If I can share an idea with you and now you go on to inspire more people using that idea, look at the rewards. That's a win for me.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. Rufaro Chanetsa joining us all the way from Zimbabwe, and she said, stepping out of my comfort zone, and then she puts a smile. So she's actually confirming that she is stepping out of her comfort zone. So if you're listening to us, that's what you should definitely be doing. Awesome. 15 minutes that we have, Steve. It seems like time is flying. I just want to shift the conversation a little bit and let's talk about STEMI education in South Africa. And maybe let me start at this point because you're an educator yourself, and educators have often received a lot of criticism. I would love for us to get to a point where we can change the narrative. How do we do that? How do we change the narrative? Because I think that is part of the problem.
Okay, so let me be controversial here. Let me just say that if you go to Finland, teachers can only be employed if they have a master's in education. So what does that tell you? These are people who are razor sharp focused on actually going into teaching to get a master's. You don't just hang around to get a master's. You've got to be focused to do that. They get the jobs. They get paid way more than most teachers I know. So they value teaching in that country. So now you've got a situation where education is valued. The country chooses the best candidates that they can, who go into class, who are passionate, because you don't go and study for 6 to 8 years if you're not passionate about that particular topic. And you've got a win-win situation. Now we go back to our country. We've got people who are studying teaching because they couldn't get into an engineering degree or a something else degree. And they're doing it as their plan B. So if they're not going to go into the classroom and be passionate about it, that's not great. Number two, we don't pay our teachers very well in South Africa. So now they have to work harder and earn less. The cost of living keeps going up with the way things have been going the last 2 or 3 years, but the salaries haven't been climbing simultaneously with the cost of living. So it's actually ending up costing teachers more to be in their profession. And what I found fascinating is when COVID came along, teachers taught online and parents were like, oh my word, I have so much respect for that teacher to be able to put up with those kids for an entire day. I'm exhausted at home just for after 15 minutes. They keep it for 8 hours and they've got such a wide, diverse range of kids in that. I don't know how they do it, but then as soon as they started going back to school, parents quickly forgot how difficult it is to be a teacher. The other issue is that children of today are not like they were 20 years ago. The kids of today, you've got to be careful what you say. You've got to be careful how you address them. If the child is going to be abusive towards you, you cannot respond in any way. So a lot of teachers are feeling completely helpless in situations where they can't control or deal with discipline of the kids. So you've got so many complexities. And then, of course, our government. Let's not get too started on that one. But the point is that you've got some, and it's not all provinces, some provinces, you know, grade 12s were only getting textbooks in March or April or even June of that year. How do you expect quality education to take place if you've got a situation where kids don't even have the tools? Some kids are still walking to school 10, 15 kilometers on a daily basis. Some kids are still sharing 1 or 2 bucket toilets for 600 kids at a school. You know,
Yeah.
you can't manage education that way. Kids can't go and study on an empty stomach. You
Yeah.
know, there are so many issues, but yet our country wants to spend 1 billion rand to sponsor Tottenham. They don't feel that maybe, you know, it would be a good idea to put some of that money into
Yeah.
dignity of students. That would be really nice too. So
Yeah.
I think we've got so many difficulties and
Yeah.
challenges in South Africa, but all of that can be overcome. You just
Yeah.
have to make a decision and say, this is what we are going to do. In the Western Cape, they are making great strides. They are building more schools. The Department of Education is very switched on. And I mean, I get to see them in action. I haven't seen other provinces, but I can tell
Yeah.
you that, you know, if you have a Department of Education that is switched on, they are going to take their students seriously. They're going to take education seriously. But let me just put one more spanner in the works. How do you tell a student that you passed matric by getting 34% for mathematics?
I've never understood that concept, Steve, and I think we should speak to some of these things, right? Because this is the standard that our country has set.
Pass. So you see, we got students who are getting the most, I don't know, I can't even call them respectable results, and then they get told, you passed matric. No, you didn't. You really didn't, because 30% to me is a third of the content. You said you got 50%, I'd say you passed. 30% is not telling me that you passed. And then education department goes, we had an 84% pass rate. Yes, but you also lost maybe 1/5 of your school going population from grade 6 all the way to grade 10. They just disappeared out of the system. Why didn't you include them in your results? And if you call 30% a pass, then of course you're going to have 84%. But if you said 50% was the pass, you'd probably get something like 20%. You know, they do the litmus tests with grade 3s and 6s around the country to establish what sort of level our students are at. And when you've got grade 6s who are reading at a grade 3 level, you know that they are not going to have very much likelihood of succeeding as they progress throughout the years, because it's going to get harder and harder as they go along. And the expectations are going to be harder. So what do? You lower the bar to make it easy for everyone to cross over. It doesn't do any good for our country, because now universities have said, well, it's great that you passed matric, but now you're going to have to pass an entrance requirement to get into our university, because we just cannot take someone who gets 30% and expect to go through university. It's not going to work that way. We have standards too. So I'm glad that you passed matric, but here is our entrance exam. And let me tell you, a lot of people are not going to university because there's no ways they can cope with those entrance exams.
So there's this false false identity that you have passed. There's this false belief that is placed upon the learners that, you know, this is good, and there's a gap between what superior institutions, like tertiary institutions are saying this is what is the standard, and what FET and primary schools are saying this is the standard. I just wanted to, just speak to a point that you mentioned earlier on, and it brings us back, because you speak again about the caliber of the kids, and a comment says the kids of today are so different, and it's becoming more difficult for teachers and parents even. One thing that I know for sure, and I'm certainly not advocating for this, they used to cane us, when we were naughty. And the reality is that we did not turn out bad, did we, right? Now, seems that
we don't know.
or maybe we did. but my question is to say, with all this, we see the videos going viral of students beating up, educators, of learners bringing knives to schools. what measures are we putting in place as the education department to ensure that we restore dignity in our schooling system? Because I think that's what is going to be key. And who is supposed to be restoring, that dignity? Is it the role of the teachers? Is it the role of the parents? Is it the role of the community? Is it the role of the church? Is it the role of the government? Who is the main person that we should be looking at and saying, well, this is really your fault, and you should be starting to get in to fixing this, man? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the issues, and I stand to be corrected, I do believe unions can be a thorn in the side of education, from the point of view that certain unions were doing jobs for pals and taking bribes from people who wanted to become principals. Now, when you start appointing principals, not on merit, but because they paid a little bit more to get that position, then you already know that integrity has been thrown out of the window and you're going to have issues with your school.
Yeah.
So here's the reality. If teachers and principals and staff were paid, but teachers were able to deliver the basic requirements, then we can move forward. But we've got teachers who are not even qualified to teach science or maths, but they are teaching it because the school couldn't even find a maths or science teacher who wants to come and work out in the township. Yeah. So we have got kids who are learning from someone who doesn't know the topic themselves.
Yeah.
So, and ironically, you might even have the same level of maths or science as the students themselves.
Yeah.
So, when you've got a situation like that, it's frustrating. And students, they know what they want. They want to learn. They have a right to learn.
Yeah.
But then I think also to quell the angst and the disappointment, I think it's important to offer more alternatives. So a lot of students are not going to get into university.
Yeah.
But there are so many amazing opportunities to build colleges where you can learn practical skills, building skills, draft skills, whether it's be bricklaying, plumbing, electrician. We are a country that is growing and building. We've got plenty need for people with skills. So if you're going to get 30%, okay, so you're not going to get into university, but go to a practical college where you can get skills and get employment straight away. I mean, you can earn real money and you'll help build the economy. And when you start having people who are getting jobs and not just sitting around for 3 or 4 years, and then the kids in matric are seeing their friends who are sitting on the streets, joining gangs and that sort of thing, you can understand why they feel frustrated at school, because they know that after that matric year, that's it. They are going to have to fend for themselves, which they don't want. So in an ideal world, we want better employment opportunities, but we've got to start focusing on skill acquisition. We've got to build skills within these students. We've got to find the right teachers to make it happen. We've got to take the teachers who still want to do it but don't have enough content knowledge, find ways to build them up. You can't go and take them on a 3-hour PowerPoint presentation workshop and say, now you are qualified to teach this section. That's not how it works,
Yeah.
So I think that we've got a long way to go with education. But if you ever look at the countries that put education first, the higher the level of mathematics, the greater the number of zeros you add to their salaries. The higher the level of maths, the higher the level of job opportunities there are for them. In our country, we go to the engineering corporates and we say to them, listen, come and sponsor some matric students so we can get them a pipeline. We can get them great tuition. We can get them into university, and then you can offer them jobs. So there's a pipeline there. We're looking not for all, but just a group. They go, no, we don't have the budget. They're happy to sponsor an art day, but they can't sponsor 5 or 6 kids. And here's the irony. Then they complain, we're trying to transform the industry, but we can't because we don't have enough candidates of color coming through. Well, that's because you're not pushing them through by supporting them. So, we've got a lot of situations in our country where there's irony. where
Yeah.
companies want transformation, but don't invest in the
Yeah.
pipeline to get the transformation. Our country wants a better educational system, but they've lowered the bar so that no one is valuing the education system. So you
Yeah.
know what? If you change perspectives, I think that might also change the situation.
Yeah, it's a broken system. The priorities are wrong, from what I'm hearing from you. But also, we need to move away from saying just because you got a 30%, you're a failure. And that spoke really to me to say, yes, you might not go into university, but there is a space for you. And it reminds me of a story that I was being told of a learner that participated in ESCOM Expo. They were really good with things that they did with their hands, right? Of course, they didn't pass to go to university, but as we speak, they are working for a science center and they're building their models, and they're getting paid. So that means that
Here we
just
go.
because they were not as good in school, still, if they are trained enough, if they get the right coaching, they can be directed towards something that they can contribute, positively. But also another point that you raised, which is very important, and I want to reiterate this, it's to say that the subject of transformation is not without a deliberate effort towards the high class education. If we're serious about transforming, our institutions and putting more women into high places, then we must be serious in investing in getting them to PhD level, to master's level, to be equipped. If we're serious about transforming, you speak about previously disadvantaged individuals, and if we're serious about this, we need to invest in it. And I think there's not much investment of time, investment of money, investment in terms of, and majority of it actually is not related to money, but we need to start investing. Steve, I want us, because I know that we won't finish, I want us to go towards the end. And this section is called Mythbuster. What is
Mythbusters. I love it.
your response?
Okay.
Myth is boring. That's our first one.
Absolute myth. Nonsense.
Numbers are tricky and science is difficult.
Well, you see, I can understand someone having that perspective because they had a negative experience. But
Yeah.
spend a few minutes with me and I might be able to give you an alternative experience. And then you have to be fair and say, I've seen both sides. I do believe that numbers and maths can be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. The last one, so that we don't keep that going. The math has no real life application.
Now, this is something I do need to talk about. You see, when I ask you what is mathematics, you're going to tell me it's a bunch of sums and numbers. Absolute nonsense. Math is about problem solving. So we learn how to solve a problem going step by step. So that's one thing that we learn from mathematics. Sometimes maths is a visual thing. Sometimes maths is about how are we going to get this thing to go there and this thing to go there. So we're solving problems. But solving problems is not always involving numbers. If you're sitting at home and you've got to deal with an incident with your child, you have to solve a problem. Here I am sitting there talking to you. My Chrome has crashed. And yet it's still working, and I'm trying to find an innovative way of getting back into the situation, but it's not working. So we have to solve problems as we are moving on the fly, and that is what mathematics teaches you. So if you are going to become a better problem solver, if you're going to learn to think outside of the box, if you're going to become creative, those skills are going to give you far more opportunities. So math is going to open doors. And the quicker you learn those skills, the more doors you're going to be opening.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Math is problem solving. Gladys from Bizama Shate coming through. Yeah. Steve, how do people get a hold of you? And maybe before I ask you that question, as we are just, really concluding this discussion, is to say you obviously teach thousands of learners every single weekend. You do it online. Can you just talk a little bit about that, and then as you wrap up, just just tell us where people can get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So I teach physically in classes and I teach online. So I'm doing both. And, you know, if you look at a 24-hour day, I might be working between 16 and 20 hours a day. So sometimes it's a long day and it's exhausting. But at the end of the day, I do it because I'm passionate about it. And yes, it does pay the bills, but I do want to try and spread. I want to be an ambassador for STEM. And it's important to go out there and actually live what you preach. You know, if you're going to go tell people, oh, you must be passionate about teaching, but then you don't go out and teach, what's the point? So, you know, I go into the schools. I love teaching my pre-grade R's and my grade R's and grade 1s. They are adorable. They give me an opportunity to introduce them to problem solving at a very young age. I enjoy working with my high school students online because they get to connect with kids from around the world. It's cool to be part of the group, and we get to solve problems that are absolutely amazing. So, you know, I think that if you need to find out more about it, livingmaths.com. We are there. And if you go look at every toilet wall, I usually write my number all over there as well.
Steve, thank you very much. First of all, for honoring our invitation. But I think what's important is the time that you spent, but not only the time, what you do in the time, which is part of what you were teaching us. How you spend your time is important, and you chose to spend yours with us today, and to share some insightful insightful things, and we are grateful for that. If you were joining us, of course, I know that we were supposed to come live at 8 p.m. and some of you are going to be coming onto the page at 8 p.m. and watching this later. Please do share the stream, share it far and wide. Yes, of course, today we were speaking to Steve Sherman, who is the Chief Imagination Officer for an NGO that is a STEM-based organization, Living Math. He has many things that you can go and look at him, but I think most importantly, he is passionate and he's inspiring, and that is what we value the most about him. Steve, thank you once again.
You're absolutely welcome. And if I can just end off, remember, it's always about the little things. Happy birthday for tomorrow.
Thank you. I'd actually forgotten. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So it is good evening from Freddie sitting in Gauteng province and Steve Sherman in the Western Cape province. Good night and good evening. Stay inspired.
Thank you. Bye-bye.